I arrived at Bellissimo restaurant at exactly noon, wearing a simple black dress from Target and driving my 2014 Subaru Outback that had 142,000 miles on it. The valet looked at my car like I'd pulled up in a vehicle held together by duct tape and prayers. "Street parking is available 2 blocks down," he suggested, not unkindly. "I'll leave the keys," I said, handing them over. He took them with obvious reluctance, probably calculating where to hide my car so it wouldn't offend the other guests. Bellissimo was the kind of Italian restaurant that appeared in food magazines. White tablecloths, gold accents, a wine list that required a degree in oenology to navigate. Mom had picked it naturally. For her 60th birthday lunch, only the best would do. Inside, the hostess greeted me with professional warmth. "Welcome to Bellissimo. Do you have a reservation?" "I'm with the Montgomery party." Her smile brightened, recognition that the Montgomery party was important. "Of course. Right this way." I followed her through the dining room, very aware of the looks I was getting. My Target dress and clearance rack shoes stood out among the designer labels and expensive jewelry adorning the other diners. The Montgomery family table was in the center of the restaurant, positioned so everyone could see us. Mom liked being seen. They were already seated. Mom in an elegant cream suit, Dad in a blazer and tie, my brother Eric and his wife Madison looking like they'd stepped out of a country club advertisement, my sister Vanessa and her fiancé Derek both scrolling through their phones with the casual confidence of people who'd never questioned their place in the world. "Oh, you made it," Vanessa said as I approached. Her tone suggested she'd been hoping I wouldn't. "Traffic was light," I said, taking the empty seat at the end of the table. Not quite part of the group, more like an afterthought squeezed in. "In that car every drive must feel long," Derek said with a laugh. "How old is that thing?" 10 years, I said. 10 years. Madison clutched her pearls. Actual pearls. "Eric, can you imagine? We trade in every 3 years. Some of us prioritize different things," I said mildly. A waiter appeared with champagne for everyone except me. I got water with lemon. I didn't bother correcting him. Mom stood up, tapping her champagne flute with a knife. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my 60th birthday. 60 years. I can hardly believe it." "You don't look a day over 50, someone at a nearby table called out. Mom beamed. "I'm blessed to have such a wonderful family," Mom continued, looking around the table with obvious pride. "Eric is doing remarkable things at his investment firm. Vanessa's wedding planning business is thriving. You've all made me so proud." She didn't mention me. I wasn't surprised. "Tao, let's order," Mom said, sitting back down. "Today is about celebrating and I intend to enjoy every moment." The waiter took our orders. Mom got the lobster ravioli. Dad ordered osso buco. Eric and Madison both chose the veal. Vanessa got the seafood risotto. Derek ordered the filet mignon with truffle butter. When the waiter turned to me, I said, "Just the minestrone soup and a side salad, please." Silence fell over the table. "Soup and salad?" Vanessa repeated. "That's it." "I'm not very hungry," I lied. "Of course," Madison murmured to Eric, not quite quietly enough. "Can't afford anything else." The waiter disappeared and conversation resumed around me. They talked about Eric's latest investment deal, Vanessa's upcoming wedding, the new cars they were considering, vacation homes they were looking at. Nobody asked me about my life. They never did. Our food arrived. Beautifully plated, carefully garnished, the kind of presentation that justified the astronomical prices. My soup was actually quite good and the salad was fresh. I ate slowly and listened to my family discuss their successes. Around 1:30, as we were finishing our entrees and the waiter was describing the dessert options, Mom set down her fork and looked directly at me. "Jade, we need to discuss something." The table went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me. "Hey," I said. "Your father and I have been talking," Mom began, her voice taking on that careful tone, the one that meant she was about to say something she thought was for my own good. "And we're concerned about you." "Concerned how?" "About your life choices. Your career or lack thereof. Your living situation. Your complete inability to keep up with the rest of the family." "Mom," Eric started, but she held up her hand. "No, this needs to be said. Jade, you're 34 years old. You work in some vague, financial consulting role that clearly doesn't pay enough. You live in a studio apartment. You drive a car that should be in a junkyard. You dress like She gestured at my Target dress. Like you shop at discount stores. I do shop at discount stores, I said calmly. Exactly. Mom's voice rose. That's exactly the problem. You're an embarrassment to this family. We can't take you anywhere. We can't introduce you to our friends without making excuses. Oh, Jade is still figuring things out. Jade is between opportunities. Jade is going through a phase. I agree, Vanessa said. It's humiliating. My friends ask why my sister lives like a college student. What am I supposed to say? And business associates ask about you, Eric added. They see the Montgomery name and assume you're successful. Then they find out you're, well, this. He gestured at me. So what do you want from me? I asked. We want you to do better, Dad said, speaking for the first time. Get a real job. Move to a better apartment. Buy decent clothes. Present yourself like a Montgomery should. And if I don't? Then maybe it's time for some distance, Mom said. We can't keep carrying the burden of your failure. It reflects poorly on all of us. I set down my soup spoon and folded my hands in my lap. I see. Don't be dramatic, Vanessa said. We're trying to help you. By calling me an embarrassment at your birthday lunch? I asked. By being honest, Mom said. Sometimes tough love is necessary. Well, speaking of honesty, I said, there's something I should probably mention. Before I could continue, the waiter appeared with the check, placed discreetly in a leather folder at Mom's elbow. Perfect timing, Mom said, pulling out her credit card without looking at the total. This is my treat. We're celebrating. She handed the card to the waiter, who disappeared. As I was saying, I continued, there's something you should know about. The waiter returned, looking uncomfortable. I'm sorry, ma'am, but this card was declined. Mom's face went red. That's impossible. Run it again. He did. Same result. There must be some mistake, Mom said, pulling out a different card. Try this one. That one declined too. I don't understand, Mom said, her voice rising. These are platinum cards with high limits. There's no reason they should decline. Let me try mine, Dad said, handing over his card. Declined. This is ridiculous, Vanessa said, pulling out her wallet. Use mine. Declined. Mine too, Eric offered. Also declined. The waiter looked increasingly uncomfortable. Perhaps there's a system issue? Would you like to call your banks? All four of them, Mom, Dad, Eric, and Vanessa, pulled out their phones and started calling their banks. I could hear fragments of the conversations. What do you mean my account is frozen? Technical difficulties? What kind of technical difficulties? This is unacceptable. I need to speak to a manager. After 5 minutes of increasingly frantic phone calls, they all turned to look at me. Jade, Dad said slowly. Try your card. I don't think that's necessary, I said. Just try it, Mom insisted. I didn't bring any cards, I said. I don't actually use credit cards. Then how do you pay for anything? Vanessa asked. I use cash or direct bank transfers, I said. More secure that way. The waiter cleared his throat. If there's an issue with payment, perhaps I could speak with the manager about alternative arrangements. That's strange, I said, pulling out my phone and opening an app. I own the bank that issued those cards. Let me check on this technical issue. The table went completely silent. You what? Eric asked. I own Pacific First Financial, I said, pulling up my banking app. Not a customer account, the owner's dashboard. Well, I own 72% of it. It's one of my holdings. I showed them the screen. Pacific First Financial. Owner, Jade Montgomery via Sterling Capital Holdings LC. That's impossible, Mom whispered. It's very possible, I said. I acquired Pacific First Financial 14 months ago when they were facing a liquidity crisis. Paid $127 million for controlling interest. The bank is worth about $340 million now after restructuring. You don't have $127 million, Vanessa said flatly. Actually, I have considerably more than that, I said, switching to my portfolio summary. My total net worth is approximately $680 million, though it fluctuates with market conditions. I turned the phone so they could all see. The screen showed Sterling Capital Holdings, portfolio summary. Total assets, $982,347,291. Total liabilities, $301,582,774. Net worth, $680,764,517. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. As for the technical issue with your cards, I continued, let me check on that. I pulled up another screen, the system admin panel that showed account statuses. I found all 4 of their accounts quickly. Ah, I see the problem, I said. Your accounts are all flagged for, let's call it review. Happens sometimes when there are unusual spending patterns. Review? Dad asked, his voice hoarse. Yes. Triggered automatically when account holders make large purchases while carrying high balances and showing concerning debt-to-income ratios. The system flags it as potential financial distress and temporarily limits the cards to prevent further debt accumulation. You did this, Mom said. You deliberately flagged our accounts. The system is automated, I said. But yes, I did set the parameters that trigger reviews. They're designed to protect customers from getting in over their heads financially. But we're not in over our heads. Eric protested. Aren't you? I asked. Eric, you're carrying $340,000 in credit card debt across 6 cards. Vanessa, your wedding costs have already exceeded $150,000 and you're still 8 months out. Mom and Dad, you've taken out 3 home equity loans in the past 2 years. The system sees that as financial distress. How do you know all this? Vanessa demanded. Because I own the bank, I said patiently. I have access to account information. Not that I make a habit of looking, but when my own family members get flagged by the system, I tend to notice. The waiter cleared his throat again. If I might suggest, perhaps we could arrange. I'll take care of it, I said, pulling out my phone again. I transferred $500 directly to the restaurant's account. That should cover the meal plus a generous tip. Thank you for your patience. The waiter practically ran away, relief evident on his face. You can't just, Mom started then stopped. Wait, you paid for lunch? Yes. But I was supposed to, this was my birthday. And you called me an embarrassment, I said. So I figured the least I could do was prevent you from being embarrassed when your credit cards all declined in front of a restaurant full of people who clearly know who you are. The color drained from Mom's face. About those account flags, Dad said carefully. Can you remove them? I could, I said. But should I? The system flagged your accounts because you're displaying signs of financial distress. Maybe instead of removing the flags, you should address the underlying issues. We're not in distress, Eric insisted. We're successful. We have good jobs, good incomes. And massive debt, I interrupted. Eric, your investment firm job pays you $240,000 a year. Your debt payments alone are $9,000 a month. You're living paycheck to paycheck while trying to maintain an appearance of wealth. You can't just, that's private information. Eric sputtered. I own the bank, I repeated. It's not private to me. Vanessa had gone pale. My wedding debt, can Derek see that? If he's checking your joint accounts, probably, I said. Which raises an interesting question. Does he know how much you're spending on this wedding? Vanessa looked down at the table. I thought not, I said. Mom finally found her voice. Jade, I don't understand. How do you have $680 million? I built it, I said simply. Over 12 years. I started with a financial consulting company I built from scratch. Made smart investments. Bought struggling companies and turned them around. Used the returns to fund more acquisitions. Each success compounded into the next one. But you live in a studio apartment, Madison said weakly. I live in a modest apartment because I don't need more space and I prefer to invest my money rather than spend it on housing I don't need, I said. The apartment costs $1,100 a month. Perfectly adequate for one person. And your car? Derek asked. Paid off. Reliable. Costs me almost nothing to maintain. Why would I spend $60,000 on a new car when this one works fine? And your clothes? Vanessa gestured at my dress. Functional, comfortable, inexpensive. I'd rather put money into assets that appreciate than into clothes that go out of style. So all this time, Mom said slowly, while we thought you were struggling, I was building a fortune, I finished. Yes. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked. Because I wanted to see if you'd value me without the money, I said. I wanted to know if I mattered to you when you thought I had nothing. If family meant more than status. And? Eric asked quietly. And 15 minutes ago my mother called me an embarrassment to the family in the middle of a crowded restaurant, I said. So I got my answer. The silence that followed was absolute. Other diners had stopped talking. The restaurant had gone quiet. Everyone was staring at our table, clearly having heard at least parts of the conversation. Mom started crying. Actual tears, running down her face and ruining her carefully applied makeup. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know you were, I thought you were. Failing. I supplied. Struggling. An embarrassment. She nodded miserably. Yes, I said. You thought all of those things. Because you never asked. You never showed interest in what I actually did. You saw my car and my clothes and made assumptions. You decided I was less than and you treated me accordingly. We were trying to help, Vanessa said weakly. By humiliating me at a birthday lunch? I asked. By calling me an embarrassment? By suggesting the family needs distance from my failure? Nobody answered. I stood up, smoothing my Target dress. I'm going to leave now. The meal is paid for. Your credit cards will be unfrozen in 24 hours. I'll override the system flags. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm not interested in petty revenge. Jade, wait, Dad started. No, I said. I'm done waiting. Done hoping you'll see me. Done being dismissed. You want a distance? You've got it. Please, Mom said, reaching for my hand. We need to talk about this. We need to. You need to understand something, I interrupted. I'm not angry. I'm not even hurt anymore. I'm just done. Done being treated like I'm less than. Done funding family events where I'm made to feel unwelcome. Done pretending that your opinion of me matters when you've made it clear I don't matter to you. That's not true, Eric said. You matter to us. Do I? I challenged. Because it didn't feel that way when Mom announced I was an embarrassment to the family. It didn't feel that way when you all agreed with her. It didn't feel that way when you spent this entire lunch discussing your own lives while completely ignoring mine. I picked up my purse. Oh, and Mom? Happy birthday. I hope 60 brings you everything you deserve. I walked out of Bellissimo and handed my ticket to the valet, who brought my 10-year-old Subaru around with something approaching respect this time. Maybe he'd heard enough of the conversation to understand that this car's owner could buy and sell most of the vehicles in this lot. As I drove away, I saw my family still sitting at the table through the window, frozen in shock, while other diners whispered and stared. My phone started ringing before I made it out of the parking lot. I declined. Vanessa. Declined. That. Declined. Eric. Declined. A text from Madison. We had no idea. Eric is devastated. Please call him. I didn't respond. Another text from Derek. Vanessa is crying. Says she's been awful to you. Is this real? Do you really own a bank? I ignored that too. I drove to my office, the headquarters of Sterling Capital Holdings, in a sleek downtown building I'd purchased 3 years ago. My company occupied the entire top floor. My assistant looked up in surprise. Ms. Montgomery, I wasn't expecting you back today. How was your mother's birthday lunch? Enlightening, I said. Hold my calls. All of them. Especially family. Understood. I went into my office and closed the door. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. I'd worked hard for this view. 12 years of building companies, making investments, taking calculated risks. And my family had thought I was failing. My phone kept buzzing with calls and texts. I finally turned it off completely. Around 4 p.m. there was a knock on my office door. I said no interruptions. I called out. Ms. Montgomery, your father is here, my assistant said through the door. He says it's urgent. He says he's not leaving until you talk to him. I sighed. Fine. Send him in. Dad walked in looking older than he had at lunch. His shoulders were slumped. His tie was loose. Jade, he said. Dad. Can I sit? I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. He sat down heavily. Your mother is at home crying, he said. Has been since lunch. Vanessa is there with her. Eric went home but he's been calling every 10 minutes wanting to know if I've talked to you. Hey, I said. Okay? That's all you have to say. What do you want me to say? I asked. That I'm sorry I embarrassed you at lunch? That I'm sorry your credit cards got declined? That I'm sorry you discovered I'm not actually the failure you thought I was. We never thought you were a failure, Dad said. Really? I pulled out my phone and pulled up a voice memo. Because I recorded lunch. Would you like to hear Mom calling me an embarrassment? Vanessa saying I'm humiliating? Eric saying I reflect poorly on the family. Dad flinched. We were trying to help. By tearing me down in public? I asked. That's an interesting definition of help. We thought. He started again. We genuinely thought you were struggling. We thought we were being supportive. Encouraging you to do better. You were being dismissive, I corrected. You were judging me based on appearances without ever bothering to understand my actual situation. Because you never told us. Dad said. How are we supposed to know you own a bank? That you're worth $680 million? You let us think you were barely getting by. I never lied, I said. I told you I worked in financial consulting. I told you work was going well. You assumed I was barely making ends meet because I didn't display wealth the way you expected. So this is our fault. For not interrogating you about your finances. This is your fault for judging me, I said bluntly. For treating me like I was less than. For calling me an embarrassment. For suggesting the family needed distance from my failure. Those are your actions, not mine. Dad looked down at his hands. You're right. We judged you. We made assumptions. We treated you badly. And I'm sorry. Your mother is sorry. We all are. Sorry isn't enough, I said. Sorry doesn't undo years of dismissal. Sorry doesn't erase being called an embarrassment at your wife's birthday lunch. What do you want from us? Dad asked. What would it take for you to forgive us? I don't know if I can, I said honestly. You didn't just hurt me today. You've been hurting me for years. Every family dinner where my life wasn't worth discussing. Every holiday where my success wasn't worth acknowledging. Every gathering where I was seated at the kids' table because I clearly hadn't grown up enough to sit with the real adults. We didn't realize. That's the problem, I interrupted. You didn't realize because you didn't pay attention. You didn't care enough to look past the surface. Dad was quiet for a long moment. Can I tell you something? When I walked into this building, the security guard asked if I needed directions. I said I was here to see the CEO. He looked surprised. Said you're usually very private, don't have many visitors. I said you were my daughter. He looked even more surprised. Said he's worked here 2 years and never heard you mention family. I wonder why, I said drily. He said you're one of the most respected business owners in the city, Dad continued. Said other CEOs call you for advice. Said you have a reputation for being brilliant and fair and incredibly strategic. And I prompted. And I realized I didn't know any of that, Dad said. I didn't know what other people see when they look at you. I only saw what I expected to see, my youngest daughter who wasn't keeping up with her siblings. Yes, I said. That's exactly what you saw. I was wrong, Dad said simply. We were all wrong. And I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try. I looked at my father, really looked at him. He looked tired, genuinely remorseful. But also lost, like he'd discovered the world wasn't what he thought it was and he didn't know how to navigate it anymore. I need time, I said finally. Time to decide if this is fixable. Time to figure out if I even want to try. I understand, Dad said standing up. Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready. Maybe, I said. Or maybe you won't. Maybe I'll decide the distance you suggested is actually what I need. Dad flinched but nodded. That's your right. After he left, I sat in my office and watched the sun set over the city I'd conquered while my family thought I was failing. Over the next week, my family tried everything. Mom sent flowers. I gave them to my assistant. Vanessa wrote a long email apologizing and asking for advice about her wedding debt. I didn't respond. Eric called my office 12 times. I didn't take any of the calls. Madison sent a basket of gourmet chocolates with a note. We're so sorry. Please give Eric a chance to make this right. I donated the chocolates to a local food bank. Finally, 7 days after the birthday lunch, I received a text from an unknown number. Hi Jade, this is Derek, Vanessa's fiancé. I convinced her to be honest with me about the wedding debt. We're scaling back significantly, cutting the budget by 70%. She's embarrassed but relieved. Thank you for forcing the truth to come out. Also, I'm sorry for laughing at your car. It's clear you understand something about money that the rest of us don't. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I called Vanessa. She answered on the first ring. Jade. Derek texted me, I said. I know. I gave him your number. I hope that's okay. It's fine. He said you're scaling back the wedding. We are, Vanessa said. Cutting everything that was just for show. Keeping what matters. Jade, I've been living beyond my means for so long, I forgot what financial security actually looks like. Watching your credit card work while all of ours declined, that was humiliating but also clarifying. Good, I said. Can we talk? Vanessa asked. In person? Not about money. About us. About being sisters. Maybe, I said. Not today. But maybe someday. I'll wait, Vanessa said. However long it takes. I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. 2 weeks after the lunch, Mom sent a handwritten letter. Dear Jade. I've spent 14 days thinking about what I said at my birthday lunch. About calling you an embarrassment. About suggesting we needed distance. About treating you like you were less than. I was wrong. Spectacularly, completely wrong. Not just about your financial situation, though clearly I was wrong about that too, but about who you are. You built something extraordinary while I was busy being disappointed in you for not doing it my way. You achieved more than most people dream of while I was critiquing your clothes. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm asking for a chance to know you. The real you. Not the daughter I imagined, but the woman you actually are. Love. Mom. I read it 3 times. Then I picked up my phone and called her. Jade. He sounded shocked that I was calling. Coffee, I said. Tomorrow. Just you and me. Yes, she said immediately. Absolutely. Where? I'll text you the address. The next morning I met Mom at a quiet cafe near my office. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth looking nervous. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I read your letter. I meant every word. We ordered coffee, just coffee, nothing fancy. And then we talked. Really talked. About my business. About the companies I'd acquired and turned around. About the investments I'd made and the strategies I'd used. Mom listened. Really listened. Asked questions. Showed genuine interest. I'm proud of you, she said finally. Not because of the money. But because you had the discipline to build something real. Because you stayed true to yourself even when we couldn't see it. Thank you, I said. That means something. Can we try again? Mom asked. Can we rebuild this? Not pretending the lunch didn't happen but moving forward from it. We can try, I said. But Mom, I need you to understand, I'm not going to go back to being dismissed. I'm not going to pretend my success doesn't exist. I'm not going to minimize myself to make you comfortable. I wouldn't want you to, Mom said. I want to know who you really are. Not who I thought you should be. Over the following months, things slowly changed. Mom and I had coffee every week. She asked about my business, my investments, my life. Real questions with real interest. Vanessa scaled back her wedding and asked me to be her maid of honor. Not to fix things, she said, but because she genuinely wanted me there. Eric apologized sincerely and asked for financial advice. We started meeting monthly to discuss investment strategies. Dad and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully, with honesty neither of us had shown before. 6 months after the birthday lunch that changed everything, we gathered for Mom's do-over 60th birthday celebration. At my penthouse. Where I finally let my family see how I actually lived. This is incredible, Eric said, looking around at my 3-bedroom corner unit with floor-to-ceiling windows. You've been living here the whole time? Vanessa asked. For years, I confirmed. While we thought you were in a studio apartment, Dad said. I kept the studio as a mailing address, I explained. Useful for maintaining privacy. Mom walked to the windows and looked out at the city. You can see the whole downtown from here. That's why I bought it, I said. We celebrated with catered food, good food, but not ostentatious. When I'd selected myself. Conversation that included everyone. And when Mom stood up to make a toast, she looked at me with genuine love. 60 years old, she said. Last time we celebrated, I made some terrible mistakes. I judged when I should have asked questions. I dismissed when I should have celebrated. I treated my daughter like she was less than when she was actually more than I could have imagined. She raised her glass. To Jade, who built an empire while we weren't paying attention. Who had the grace to forgive us when we didn't deserve it. Who taught us all what real success looks like. To Jade, everyone echoed. As I looked around at my family, imperfect, flawed but trying, I felt something settle inside me. They would never be perfect. We would never erase what happened at that first birthday lunch. But we were learning. Growing. Building something new on a foundation of honesty instead of assumptions. And that was enough. My phone buzzed with an alert from Pacific First Financial. One of my automated systems detecting unusual activity. I checked it quickly. Nothing urgent, just the bank's AI flagging a large transaction for review. I check it later. Everything okay? Dad asked, noticing me looking at my phone. Just the bank, I said. You know how it is. Actually, he said with a smile, I really don't. But I'd love to learn if you're willing to teach me. I am, I said. I really am. Because that's what I'd wanted all along. Not recognition for my wealth. Not praise for my success. Just someone willing to pay attention. Someone willing to see me. And finally, 12 years and $680 million later, my family was ready to look.